for everybody. We'll send this out to anyone who attended and did not attend as well. Meet the Firms Week is almost over. I can't believe it. But hopefully by now you've registered at meetthefirmsweek.com, which allows you to build a profile on CollegeFrog. That's a profile that employers around the country can search for and find you. And of course, you can apply to great firms as well on CollegeFrog. I want to thank CPA Excel, Deloitte, and the Association of Accounting Administration for sponsoring National Meet the Firm Week, and we have been informative and insightful week for all of you this week. I think with the webinars we've had so far, it's been outstanding. And Monday we had the CPA review with CPA Excel. We've had Life in the Big Four with Deloitte, and yesterday we learned about starting your career in a corporation with Vanguard. If you missed those, we'll be sending out recordings to everybody next week, so be sure you hit those. And tomorrow, we're going to have the Inside Scoop. So this is going to be a real recruiter from UHY, one of the top firms in the country, talking about your resume, job search advice, how to impress recruiters, how to manage and meet the firms, how to apply to firms who don't go to your college campus. So if you'd like to register for that, you can go back to meetthefirmsweek.com, click on the Webinars tab, and you can register for that as well. And I hope you'll join us. Be sure to like us on Facebook for updates on firms and updates on career advice, and to access other recordings of previous webinars. It's at facebook.com/collegefrog. So let's talk about today. We're going to be learning about why you would want to start your career in a mid-sized CPA firm. Let me tell you why that's important. First of all, it's an excellent place to begin your career, as you're about to hear from Kevin. There are thousands, between 4,000 and 5,000 mid-market firms. These are local and regional CPA firms and audit firms that hire college students for internships and entry-level positions. And I am so excited to see everyone signing into the webinar today, because you can learn so much about why this is an incredible place to start your career. So today we're going to hear from Kevin Turco. Now, Kevin is with Armanino. Armanino is a mid-market firm. It's the largest privately owned firm based in the state of California, and they are known around the industry as being an innovator and a leading firm around not only their CPA practice, but also in the benefits and the ways they develop your career. So we're really excited to have them. And Kevin Turco is the recruitment manager for Armanino. Before we get started, a couple of things. You have on your control panel there the ability to ask questions, and we're going to wrap up today at the end with question and answer. And I hope that you'll take the time to ask those questions. So, right quick, if you'll, let's give that a try. Here's what we're going to do. And some of you have been on this session before. You know this question I'm going to ask. We'd love to see what colleges are represented on the call today. If you have a second, please type into the control panel there what college you're from, and Kevin and I will kind of read some of the answers. Do that now, please. Kevin, you should probably see this. Oh, cool. We've got Texas A&M, DePaul, University of Maryland, Florida State, San Diego, Thunderbird, University of Texas at Dallas, Cleveland State, Purdue, go Boilermakers, University of Miami, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, University of Alabama, Binghamton, Cal State Northridge, Wisconsin, the University of Texas at Austin, Wayne State, Florida State University. Thank you guys for signing in. It's always cool to see who all is on the call today, and we really appreciate you guys being here. University of South Alabama, that is, so I'm in Pensacola, Florida. You're only 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away. All right, well, you know how to ask questions and answers, so I hope you'll take advantage of that today. Kevin, thank you so much for being a part of this today. We're going to kick things off and hand it over to you, and we look forward to your presentation. Kevin, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Hello, everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful time during this Meet the Firms week. Happy to be here with you guys. So I'm going to dive right in. Really, as Jeff mentioned, today it's really about highlighting what that mid-market, that mid-sized firm is all about, and giving you some insights as to starting your career there. So jumping right in, what I'd like to do is go ahead and first give you a little bit of insight about Armanino. You should be seeing the slide forward anytime now. Just give it a sec here. But Armanino, as Jeff mentioned, is the largest California-based CPA firm, and we got our start here in the Bay Area, but now have really expanded to have a national presence. You see there on the screen that we have a presence in the Northwest, in the Seattle area, as well as Portland, and Naperville, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. We have about 350 employees and 42 partners, so definitely a pretty good-sized firm. When you compare us to the other firms in the nation, we're ranked right now at number 29. So just this year, for the first time, broke into the 20s. Pretty excited about that. Some of the services that we offer are audit, tax, and a host of consulting services, including media consulting, which I think really harkens to the fact that we're a very innovative firm and really looking to be a business consulting practice, more so than just your basic audit and tax. We've been ranked as one of the fastest growing firms in the nation year after year. So definitely the way we see it is, we want to grow and get bigger, not simply to say that we're the largest, but to create opportunities for our people. And so we look to continue growing. We've also been ranked as one of the best places to work in the Bay Area, as well as across the nation when looking at other accounting firms. So that's a little bit about Armanino. I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of background on myself. I joined Armanino in 2007, came right out of University of Pacific, which is over in Stockton, California, near our capital of Sacramento. Marketing and management was my major, and so recruiting seemed like a good fit. I came in and really started my focus on campus recruiting, and that's where I spend most of my time. But also, I do a lot of help around the experience hire recruiting. I help out our marketing department with some social media, and also do some internal communications. I've had a chance to take a leadership role at the firm already. I've been able to chair our staff advisory board. It's an internal board that I'll talk about a little bit later too, but essentially it's made up of any staff level people that could be seniors, anybody before the rank of manager, and it meets with our managing partner, our CEO, on a monthly basis to look at how we can continue to grow our fellow staff. Since making manager, I continue to work with the staff advisory board as more of a consultant and advisor. I also had a chance to sit on MPACE, which is an association of colleges and employers, as a board member, so get a little bit of exposure there. So that's a little bit of my background. So what are we going to talk about today? You see here the agenda. Really what I want to look at is for a lot of you, maybe for those seniors out there, you're looking at a career soon. For maybe the folks that are a little bit earlier in your academic career, you're starting to think about what are the possibilities for a career in public accounting. So I want to walk through that a little bit, particularly at what it's like at a mid-sized firm from the career side, the life side, talk a little bit about prestige, and then give you guys some actionable takeaways.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Jeff. Just real quick, the slides are, some of the students are saying they're not seeing the slides advance, and I know that probably on your screen it's moving forward, but we're not seeing that. And I've got to, let's take a quick timeout real quick, and if you want to, we're going to make me the presenter, and then I'm going to make you the presenter again. Your slides are great. I want them to see them, and that way, if we do this switch, it'll kind of trigger it. Sorry, everybody, but sometimes you got to improvise with these GoToWebinar. So make me the presenter, and I'll kind of take over, and then I'm going to hand it back over to you. Maybe that'll jumpstart this.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for the heads up, folks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Go ahead and switch over to you there, Jeff.
Okay, so one second, everybody. So now you're probably looking at my screen. Yes, you are. Now I'm going to go back, Kevin, to you.
Sure.
And let's see if maybe this will jumpstart it. All right, so now press show my screen. There we go. We got it. Okay. If somebody could just give me a confirmation that you're seeing the slide says endless possibilities ahead, we should be good to go. And we got it. Kevin, you're back on, man. Go ahead. Thanks. All
right, great. Well, you guys didn't really miss much on those first slides other than my own mug, so I won't go back and show you that. We're going to keep moving forward. So the first part is talking a little bit about career. There's a few things on the career side that I'll talk about, but essentially this is a topic I could talk on all day. Of course, I'm going to be using some of my experiences from what I've had over the 6 years that I've been at Armanino, so they're personal to me, and of course I'm a little biased to our own firm. But this is what I've seen in talking to a number of students. One of the things about a mid-market firm is that you tend to get more exposure faster. So you're able to move forward in your career a little bit faster than perhaps a larger firm where some of the engagements could be larger. I talked to some students who maybe they're working on some of those Fortune 100 companies. You look at Intel or Apple. Those are very large engagements that they might work on, and they typically take a little bit longer. What happens then is that you could be auditing the cash section of the financial statements for a number of months alongside a number of other staffers. At Armanino, we focus a little bit more on mid-market clients. So we have a wide range of clients that we work on, from small privately owned businesses, maybe startups, to very large publicly traded companies. So there's a wide range. But the nice thing is that they're not so large that you really kind of get pigeonholed into one particular area. So you get to see more industries faster because you're getting on more jobs. Typically, the variety of work that you see, maybe from how much exposure you're getting, tends to also increase for that same reason. The teams are also smaller, so there's a couple things with that. You get a little bit more personalized attention. One of the reasons why I chose to go to University of the Pacific was it was a smaller school. I knew that I'd have smaller class sizes and have a little bit more of a close relationship with the professors. One of the things I found once I joined Armanino, and it's similar across mid-sized firms, is that you do get a little bit more personalized attention because there's less people. So a typical engagement team at Armanino for, say, on the audit side might be around 3 to 6 people. That means that you're one of maybe 1 or 2 staff and getting a lot more time with the senior, the manager, even the partner on the job. It also means that you're playing a larger role in the client's business. As you can imagine, if you're working on that Apple engagement and there's 10, 20 people working on that, it's a smaller piece of the pie that you get to see and be a part of. So your impact is a little bit greater being on that smaller team. Typically, your exposure to top leadership is a little bit different. We pride ourselves in having our partners and our managers on site a little bit more often. I know one story that one of our staffers had mentioned. She was just getting her start. She was relatively new, and Andy Armanino, our managing partner, happened to be on the job. It was his client, and he sits down with her and kind of sits next to her at her laptop and says, "Hey, how's it going? What are you working on? Let's work through it together." And of course, it was a little bit intimidating for her at first, but she really kind of appreciated that hands-on attention. You tend to get that a little bit more at the mid-sized firm level. One thing I want to mention, I mentioned earlier that I was on something called the Staff Advisory Board, and a lot of times, whether it's through an official board like this or maybe an informal setting, you tend to have a little bit more engagement, a little bit more interaction with your top leadership. It's been really pretty cool for me to have had the opportunity to meet with our managing partner on really more than a monthly basis and get some insight from him, learn from him in a pretty close setting. So that's pretty cool. And it gives you the ability to stand out. You typically have a little bit more of a voice. As you can imagine, as companies get larger, whether it's in accounting or in any industry, you tend to see much more infrastructure and a little bit more bureaucracy. What happens is you get focused in certain tracks. With a mid-sized firm, there's a little bit more leniency to that, a little bit more flexibility. So what I wanted to do next was actually talk to you guys a little bit about a real-life example. One of our consultants who joined our firm right out of school and made manager in 3 years. It's actually not a picture of him, but I could imagine that when he made manager in 3 years, that's probably something that he did. I sure would. But essentially, his name's Scott, and he came out of University of Denver, if we have any folks on the line there. And really, he did a few things. He started meeting people right away. He built a strong internal network and, of course, started networking externally, too. Given the size of our firm, it made it very easy for him to go and reach out to folks beyond the service line that he came in. And he was able to then learn a lot from others, and he was able to raise his hand and get on special projects. He by doing so, he really essentially started his own niche, whether he realized it or not, and that gave him the opportunity to move very quickly. By getting involved, he also joined the staff advisory board, and that gave him the opportunity to learn some leadership skills and exhibit some leadership skills early on. Now, of course, making manager in 3 years in public accounting is quite a feat and not typical, but it can be done, and it's typically done a little bit more easily at a mid-sized firm than some of the others, because there is a little less of that bureaucracy, that infrastructure that allows you to move at your own pace. So that's a little bit on the career side. Now let's focus on the life side a little bit. And you see there the title, work is not life, but it's a part of it. And really what you see, that Venn diagram type of thing, really illustrates Armanino's approach to understanding that your work is a part of your life, but you also have things outside of that, your extracurriculars, your passions or your interests, and your community, your family and your friends. And really it's not about work-life balance. We all hear that a lot, and at Armanino we look at that as something that's probably inherently a little bit inaccurate, right? We don't want to have work first and then life. And balance almost means that you have to give something up to get the other. So it's really more about integrating the different parts of your life for them to overlap. So a few things on that. At mid-sized firms, it's still public accounting, so you can and will have some long hours. I'm not going to say that you go to a mid-sized firm or really any size firm and you're going to be doing a 40-hour work week every week of the year. But there are some differences between some of the real large firms out there that work you 60, 70, 80 hours a week all year long. For us, it is much lower than that. And what we find, as I talk to students that maybe, or even some professionals that have gone into, say, a Big Four type firm, they struggle to have time to study for the CPA exam. And for a lot of us out there that are going into this career, the CPA is definitely something that you're looking to do, and it becomes a little bit of a hindrance if you can't get that. You can't move forward in your career. So there's definitely a struggle there when you don't have time to study and take the exam. Mid-sized firms tend to be able to allow you much more time to pursue that licensure and then move forward in your career. The other thing that we find on the mid-sized firms is a little bit about overtime pay. I know over here in California we have a little bit different laws than some of the other states out there, but I was talking to Jeff earlier, and we both agreed that across the board firms will tend to pay the overtime at the mid-market level than some of the big firms. What that means to you is essentially, if you're getting salaried, you're getting a flat rate across no matter how many hours you're working. If you work overtime at, say, Armanino, any hours that you work, over 40 in a week, for example, you're getting paid time and a half of your hourly rate. So it can become pretty lucrative when you do have those long hours. And so there's a financial aspect to looking at the overtime that you get maybe from a mid-market firm versus a Big Four. And of course, I'm speaking on Armanino's behalf. Everybody's going to be different, but something to keep in mind. The other idea is one I mentioned when I told my story about Scott, and that's the control of your career. There's actually an intern that we had just this summer that it was kind of cool. She has some passions outside of work, particularly around nonprofits, and that's an industry that we also work in. And so what was neat was that she was really able to merge a passion that she had with some of the work that she was able to pursue as well. She was able to learn more about the nonprofit industry and take that back to a nonprofit that she was actually starting on her own outside of work. So it was pretty cool to see that, and I think that at the mid-market level you tend to have the ability to have a voice and say, I'd like to pursue some of these industries. I think that I'm really passionate about that, and when you can pursue something you're passionate about, you tend to be much more successful. So there's a stronger voice that you're able to have at that mid-market level oftentimes. Finally, there's that idea of the environment. Probably a pretty typical one that you hear a lot is, you're a name, not a number, but I do think it rings true, and it's just kind of a fact of size, when you get up into the thousands of people, it's harder to stand out as an individual. Armanino being at 350, 400 folks, I can honestly say that I know the names of the vast majority of my coworkers, if not all of them, and I think that having that name attached, or instead of being that number or that cog in a big machine, allows you the ability to have an impact and be your own individual. And finally, from my interactions with folks, I found that at the mid-market level, there tends to be stronger bonds with your coworkers that go beyond the office. So a couple real-life examples of that are, the ability to pursue outside activities. You see the slide coming up on the screen, that bottom right. That's two of our partners that have a love and a passion for cycling, and even at the partner level, busy guys, but still have plenty of time to pursue outside interests like cycling. What was cool is I took that picture. So the other thing is that there's less of a social hierarchy at the mid-sized firms oftentimes, and the staff intermingle with the managers and the partners all the same. So while there might be the hierarchy in terms of work roles, it doesn't go the same for the social side. That bottom left is a picture of my CrossFit gym. I personally have grown a huge interest in CrossFit, and what's been neat is that I've had the opportunity to grow and develop in my career, but also pursue my own interests. But finally, the cool one that I want to mention is that picture of all those Disney characters. And I'm friends with a lot of friends on Facebook with a lot of my coworkers, and I noticed there was a post coming from Disneyland of two of my coworkers that decided to take their families down to Disneyland together. And I thought to myself, wow, that's pretty cool. That a lot of times people go on vacation to get away from their coworkers. Here at Armanino, they're going on vacations together and taking their families together on vacation. So I think if you can find a place that really celebrates that sense of community and gives you the opportunity to bond with your coworkers, you're going to start looking forward to going to work a lot more every day. So the third point I want to mention is around that prestige and what's in a name. I first have to mention I had to include one of those kind of dorky stock photos. You have to entertain yourself as you're building these PowerPoints. But essentially, there's a lot of career paths that you can choose as you're majoring in accounting. And oftentimes you have people talk about, you got to go by the name and get that name on your resume. And oftentimes that refers to the large multinational firms like the Big Four. But a couple of things I would caution you on. The first is, what is your aim in terms of your career? Are you looking to get into public accounting simply to get your hours so that you can be licensed as a CPA and then move into private industry? Or are you really looking to have a career in public accounting where you move through the ranks and move to manager, senior manager, or maybe even partner? Because what I would tell you is, if that's the case, what does it matter if you have a name on a resume if you never have to use your resume again? It was funny, I was asked, for my own resume a while back to write up a bio. And I said, well, I'm going to have to update that since the last thing it shows on there was a job I had back in college. And that's because I haven't had to use my resume. I haven't had to update it because I don't plan on going anywhere. So something to consider is if you want that career, what does that resume really matter? One of the things that I also want to point out is there are other options out there beyond public accounting. And there's something that I call the corporate conundrum where you get into public accounting and you spend a few years there and decide to go into private industry for whatever reason. And what we find is that we have a number of kind of what we'll call boomerang employees sometimes where they go into private industry and find that it's not quite for them. Maybe there's not the diversity of work because obviously your one client is the company you're working for versus the variety of clients that you might get working at a public accounting firm. And we see folks come back because they like that. Really what I found is that the mid-sized firms tend to follow the story of Goldilocks pretty well. You have the three bears, and you find one's too small, the other's too large, and then there's the one in the middle that's just right. And I think that fits as an example for career in accounting. Again, of course, I'm biased, but what I found in talking to some folks is that you can go to a smaller firm, but they tend to be pretty specific in maybe just one or two industries, or don't necessarily have the resources to help you grow as far as you can in your career. On the other side of it, though, you have the larger firms, and I've focused a little bit more on that, that maybe have some of the resources, but you don't get that sense of community, or you get focused on one particular industry because the companies are so large. So what you find is that right in the middle is where you have those mid-market firms that give you the opportunity to have that sense of community, to stand out, but also to pursue plenty of different opportunities. So something to consider, that maybe sometimes the name is important, but maybe if, depending on what your career aspirations are, maybe it's not. To give you an idea, what I did here on this next slide that should be coming up any moment now is took a look at some resumes, one from an employee that joined Armanino as a new graduate, and one that basically went the same amount of time but started at the Big Four and then came to Armanino. You see there the clients that they had, a little bit more diversity on the Armanino side, as I mentioned before, because of the size of the engagements. The Armanino staffer was able to get on more jobs and a greater variety of them. Of course, the Big Four firms have those industries, but because they're larger engagements, oftentimes didn't see as many. You see some of the accounts that they worked on. Some are very similar, but there's a few additional ones on the Armanino side. But I think the one point to really point out that's a big difference is that in the same amount of time, one of the staffs did not have a chance to gain some in-charge experience, right, and get a little bit of a exposure to what it would like to be a senior and get some of that practice in before they actually make senior. And I think that that's a big piece. And so all of a sudden, you look at it this way, which resume looks a little stronger? It's up to you to decide, but from an exposure standpoint and experience standpoint over the same amount of time, the mid-market firm tends to allow a little bit greater exposure.
Hey, Kevin, this is Jeff. You mind if I ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff.
This is an awesome slide because it really tells a story of what kind of exposure a recent grad would get at Armanino or a mid-market firm. Of course, I think still many people may go to a Big Four, but can you talk about people, students who may go to the Big Four, and if they happen to leave, do you see people, leaving the Big Four to come back to a mid-sized firm like Armanino after the fact?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we see it pretty often, and of course, being on campus and doing the campus recruiting, I'll meet folks that we'll meet them and we'll start to develop a good relationship with them, and give them an offer to come join Armanino, and they decide to pursue another firm like the Big Four for whatever reason. I remember one story of somebody who now is at Armanino when we were recruiting her, and she called me to say that she was going to go to another firm. She goes, "I feel like we're breaking up. It's not you, it's me. I have to go this route." But what I said is, hey, that's okay, and everybody has to pursue the career path that's right for them. But the door stays open, and we have a number of folks who have came here from the Big Four and are doing very well. So that opportunity is also available if you decide to go that route. So I'll go ahead and keep plugging away here. So that really walks us through the career side, the life side, and a little bit about what's in a name. But what are some of the things that you can do now to start figuring out what is that best fit firm for me? So as the slide comes up, what I would really recommend to all of you, no matter what point you are in your career, and hopefully you like that slide there, it's kind of a little fun one, but wherever you are in your career, are you really going after the firms that follow the same values you have? I think the picture on the screen maybe goes in the opposite direction of that, and obviously it's a little bit of a fun one there, but what are some of the values for you that are most important? Is it around career growth? Is it that name? And if it is, that's okay. For some, maybe it's the one that offers the best salary. And you really have to consider what is most important to you, and that's where it really lies. So, I can come here and mention all the things about a mid-market firm or, versus larger firms, but it rests on those key values, and I'd really recommend those what you guys look at, excuse me, and start asking the questions that'll help you get there.
Hey, Kevin, I thought
Sure.
I would throw in a couple questions before you moved on. I know you were going that direction, but
Yeah.
Just real quick, there's a mid-market firm director that I had met a couple years ago named Jules Frankel. He's at a firm called Wilkin and Gutenplan in New Jersey, and he was in the position you were in about a year ago on Meet the Firms Week, and he challenged the students, and I'll do the same to you, to be thinking about what it is that's important to you. Because, as Kevin's trying to say, you need to be asking the questions to yourself. No one else is going to do it for you, and you need to focus on what you want. So, you got to think about, do you thrive in a smaller, more intimate work environment, or not, right? Is work-life balance a critical factor to you, or is it not attractive to you? Does it matter? Do you prefer smaller towns instead of big cities? Is it important to you to have close relationships with your clients? I think that's a very valuable question. And what do you think about having your managers and coworkers be easily accessible? That kind of community thing that Kevin talked about. I know you're going to talk some more about some of the questions you asked. Just, as you're thinking about these, there are different types of firms within public accounting, and only you can decide what's right for you. So just a thought to point out there, and I'll let you jump back in, Kevin.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it really, I think, revolves around you asking yourself those questions, and actually, thanks for the lead in, Jeff. But then there's questions that you can start asking the firms, whether it's the recruiters or some of the professionals, to help get the information that you need. And so that's what I wanted to give you on this next slide, were some questions to get you started. And the better the questions that you ask, the better information you're going to get. So just walking through some of these, what has been your favorite client to work on and why? Or what has been your favorite social event at the firm? Both of those, as you look at them, they're very specific questions that are going to get very specific answers. When you ask one person, what their favorite client is and why, it's going to be different than the next person you ask. So you're starting to get a diversity of answers, and they're going to be much more specific. If you get generic information, you're going to have to make more of a generic decision. So really dive into the questions that you're asking. You see that third one, which I think is really great for the folks at the level that you're at, where you can start to learn from other people's experiences to make better career choices for yourself. Oftentimes, and I'm sure you hear this at your various schools, folks will say, the work that you're doing once you get into public accounting is very different than what you're learning in the classroom. And that's very true. But are there certain things out there that you can learn from other people's experiences to help develop yourself? And then that fourth one, really, if leadership is something that you are focusing, get the questions out about that. Personally, what have you found valuable about the opportunities to interact with top leadership? Or maybe it's around, that life-work integration. How have you continued to succeed in your career, but also focus on some of the other interests that you have? Those are all some great questions. People always tend to say, what is it that makes your firm different? Oh, it's our people. Well, if everybody answers that, then it kind of becomes a useless answer until they tell you what it is about their people that really makes their firm great compared to somebody else's. So hopefully those are some of the questions that will help lead you to ask the questions that are right for you. But my recommendation is try to really get personal with them, and get specific answers about their particular experiences. So finally, as I wrap up, because I want to definitely make some time for questions, I'll come back to this Venn diagram and mention that everybody's going to be different. Those circles are going to be different sizes for every different individual. What you tend to focus on But if you look at this as a starting point and you say, okay, if I know that for me, I want to have the ability to go pursue, if I want to go run a marathon and I need to be able to train for that, are there certain firms that are going to have a little bit more flexibility with the hours that will allow me to go do that? Or maybe you do want to work more, and that's fine too. But start here, and figure out how big those circles are, how much you want them to overlap, or how much you want them to be separate, and really start to follow your heart. You're going to have a lot of people telling you which way to go, including me, because I'm saying, these mid-sized firms are great. I'd say listen to all of them, but at the end of the day, make the decision that's going to be best for you and your career path and your well-being. And so wherever you go, I definitely want to wish all of you the best of luck. And at this point, turn it over to some questions because I'm sure there's plenty out there. And Jeff, kick it over to you to get that started.
And you're right, Kevin. You've given everyone a lot to think about, and there's been a lot of great questions, maybe more than we'll even have time to answer. But I just wanted to say that there was something in there among the many tidbits, but the one about starting when you set foot in a career. You gave the story of Scott and how he made partner in 3 years, and while that's not typical, something he did as soon as he started in his firm was building a strong network across teams and across his divisions and raising his hand. That is profound advice that it should be well received across this call. So please, I hope everyone heard that and wrote that down because that's extremely important. A lot of great stuff about why mid-market firms. We have some questions. And Kevin, I think I've gotten this question 3 or 4 times, and it's sort of this combination of what is it that you look for as a candidate at Armanino, but let's take that a step at a higher level. And what do you think makes attractive candidates in mid-market firms? And when you see a candidate, give us a description of things that you see in a candidate that you really see is a high potential candidate that you would get very excited about.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think that what you find at the mid-market firms, and I mentioned a little bit, is the amount of exposure and work that you're doing is much greater, and part of that exposure is around how much you're working with clients. You tend to start working with clients much more closely, faster at a mid-sized firm. And the reason I mention that is that it then becomes important for us to identify candidates who we feel comfortable putting in front of a client very early on. This being a service industry, we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. And there's a few things then that we really look for. One, it's going to be really strong communication skills, and that's going to be the ability to interact professionally with all types of people. At Armanino, if you're a staff in our audit department, we're going to put you, we're going to say, hey, go ask that controller, maybe even that CFO, for some information. And we're going to do that pretty soon in your career. So we need to make sure that we already know that you have those communication skills lined up to be able to go do that. I will mention on the communication skills side too, oftentimes folks don't realize that going into public accounting, there's a lot of documentation that you have to do. And of course there's a lot of email correspondence. So it's not just the verbal communication that's important, but the written communication also. So consider that as you're starting to develop your career. That's a big part. The other thing too, though, that we look for, and it's going to vary from firm to firm, but especially here at Armanino, are those folks that are going to get involved. So if you look at that from what can you do on campus now, when we see a resume that has somebody who's taken on leadership positions and in clubs, different organizations, or joined sports teams, anything where they're interacting with a variety of individuals and not simply being a member, but being an active member and taking on a leadership role, that's definitely a big standout. Using Scott as an example, that's something that he did. He got involved with his MBA club. He stayed on and got his master's. With his MBA club, he got involved in some sports. So that involvement in extracurriculars really helps create a well-rounded professional. So that's a big part too.
If there are sophomores or juniors on the call, Kevin, who still have some time in college, anything, what would you recommend that they do to to maybe boost up that resume and maybe increase those communication skills that seem so important to a mid-market firm?
Absolutely, definitely go get involved in some clubs. Beta Alpha Psi is the big one that a lot of folks think of in terms of a national accounting organization, or join your accounting club if it's a more school specific. But also, don't be afraid to pursue things that are outside of accounting. Those ones that are more of a passion and an interest, because you can still get those development of those interpersonal skills in those as well. So maybe I'd recommend one that's more of a personal interest and getting involved in that, and also get involved in something that's more for the professional development side. I think both will help you. Also, speaking specifically to communication skills, something like Toastmasters, public speaking classes, things like that, always going to be helpful as well.
Totally agreed. Great call. This can be answered for Armanino, but really this applies probably to every mid-market firm. But I have a couple people have asked, how do I get a mid-market firm to see my resume if they don't go to your campus? So how do students pursue? Well, I'll ask how students apply to Armanino later, but how would you recommend a student who wants to get a job or an internship with a mid-market firm like you guys, how do you recommend them approaching you?
Well, there's a couple ways you can do it, and every firm's going to be different. But I think leveraging, obviously the career site is one, and you can apply through their career site. But if you want to go that extra mile, make an extra effort, leveraging social media allows you to do that. And there's a couple different platforms that I would recommend. The first, most obviously, would be LinkedIn. Where I would start is see if there's anybody that you share a connection with at that firm, and leverage that connection. And that speaks to, as you pointed out, Jeff, the value of building your network early on. But you could also then look to connect with the recruiter. One thing I would definitely recommend if you go that route is it's easy for somebody to simply hit that connect with this person button and hope that they say yes. You're going to increase your likelihood of connecting with a professional, whether it's a recruiter or one of the professionals in their service lines, if you actually draft a little bit of a note. It goes the extra mile and really shows you are truly interested and not just looking for a connection. So I would definitely go that route. Another way to stand out sometimes now is if you get involved maybe by something using their Facebook page. A lot of the firms now have Facebook pages out there that they leverage to varying degrees. Maybe if you make a comment on something that they did, maybe an event that they had, or even just say, hey, you guys look like a great place to work. I'd really be interested in learning more. Kind of puts yourself out there in another medium that a lot of folks don't, so it helps you get a little bit more exposure. Those would be some of the recommendations I might make.
Yeah, and Kevin, while we go to the next question real quick, could you put the slide back up that had the questions to ask? It was one of your last slides. A couple people asked me if you would do that.
No problem. Should be coming up anytime.
Great, thank you. And I would add to that answer, having worked at a job board for most of my career, use the job boards. Use CollegeFrog. Identify companies who are on CollegeFrog and apply. And I'll give you a little secret too. It's good that you would apply through a job board, but I think, and Kevin can disagree if he wants, but that recruiters want to see a little bit of assertive behavior from recruits. You don't want to be overboard, but it's okay to pursue and show initiative if you're really interested in a firm. But you better know why you're interested in that firm and what you have to bring the firm. And so, apply on job boards, but also use those job boards as information so that you can reach out proactively to those firms.
Absolutely.
Kevin, we've had a couple people ask about who've had low GPA. So kind of a quick question. If somebody had a low GPA in school but had some good experience otherwise, but they were able to pass the CPA exam, what impact would that have on you or mid-market firms and your interest in that student?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. And you threw in an extra piece there about the CPA exam, and I think that's definitely going to help your cause. Obviously, when you look at mid-sized firms, they get a lot of applicants, and the GPA initially can be a way to draw a line in the sand, and that helps. I would say a couple things is, one, what we've found is that intermediate 1 and 2 are courses that tend to be good indicators of performance on the job. So I would just say, first of all, really make sure you guys buckle down on those courses. But second of all, yeah, I think that there's a couple things that can help mitigate GPA from time to time. One is if you've really built your resume to show that you're well-rounded in other areas. If you've passed the CPA exam, that's going to at least show that you understand the material well. I think there's also sometimes an opportunity now that folks have to pursue some extra units to be able to sit for the exam. Those are going to be relevant courses that you can address and say, oh, I've added some courses to help bring that GPA up or pursue a master's degree. Typically, what we're going to want to look at are the accounting courses. So if it was something else that brought it down, we're going to look at that a little bit less. So something also to keep in mind. Every situation is different, so it's a little bit tough to give a general answer, but those are some of the things that I'd mention.
No, that's great. Thank you, Kevin. What's the best way for recent graduates to network with mid-market firms like yours? And I think what he's asking is maybe in person, how can people connect with firms and recruiters and things like that? And clearly it's for a job seeker.
Right, absolutely. I'll say that probably a good place to start is getting involved with your state's CPA association. For us, it would be Cal CPA, or this. Every state has a little bit different name for it, but they're a society of public accountants or CPAs. Oftentimes, those state-level organizations throw a lot of different events that the professionals will go to, and that's a great opportunity to network. There's also organizations out there that are beyond the state level, ones that there's the Association for Women Accountants. That's another one. There's a lot of networking groups out there, and I'd say that that's a great starting point. They also oftentimes have those groups on LinkedIn as well, so if you're looking to network virtually, get involved in some of those groups online and start participating in the discussions that they're having in that setting.
Thanks, Kevin. I have probably 4 questions that are asking about non-traditional students who are entry-level candidates. So already graduated, maybe they went back and finished up their accounting degree, or maybe they're mid-career switchers, okay? And clearly they're new to the accounting profession, but they have work and life experience. How do you approach that and how should recruits approach a firm like Armanino when they have that situation?
Well, I think every experience that you have is going to be useful for whatever it is that you're doing in the future. And the best thing to do is really look to show how your previous experience can be positively applied to what you're looking to do in the future. Actually, talking to a candidate in the last couple weeks that really fits that bill. He was a mid-career guy that decided to move away from a career in sales and try accounting. And so for him, he was able to really show, I understand that at some point as I develop in my career, there's a shift to building a book of business and some business development. And I feel that while I didn't have the technical background on the sales side, I definitely will have that ability to engage with clients well and have that experience in selling. So now I'm learning about the accounting side, and we'll be well-rounded in my approach and how I can bring value to the organization. So I think that's the big thing that you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, does Armanino hire? Will Armanino interview a candidate who is fit for an entry level, but who has had significant work experience and like switched into accounting in mid-career?
Yeah, we definitely have folks like that here at the firm who have switched careers, and they've done well. And we'll continue to look at those. Those people that are here now are great examples, and we note that there are more out there. And ultimately, we're just looking to find the best people that are going to deliver the best service to our clients.
Kevin, I got a rapid-fire question here about Armanino. Do you have any openings in Seattle, or is there a time of year when openings in Seattle would be posted on your website for entry-level positions?
Currently, we don't have any entry-level positions up in the Northwest at this point. Those are areas that we're continuing to develop. Particularly, our area of focus up there is around our IT consulting practice. But it is the hope that now having some feet on the ground in those areas that we'll continue to develop those and hopefully bring perhaps an audit or tax presence as well as other consulting services. From a time of year standpoint, that's not necessarily one that has a specific timeline. It's just as the business grows, obviously our needs will change. But it's a little bit tougher. Probably the best way to do it is just keep an eye out on the job board from time to time to see if something comes up. Because hopefully we'll be hiring at the new grad level soon. But it really will just depend on how we develop that business.
Great, thank you. A couple of the rapid-fire questions about Armanino. Does your firm have energy, oil and gas companies as clients? I'll ask you real quick. Do you know if they're in the oil and gas business?
That is not an industry that we focus on. It's funny, we have a lot of industries that we do focus on. That isn't one at this time, though, unfortunately.
And the follow-up is, does your firm work with hedge funds? So are you in the hedge fund business as well?
We do some work in the financial services. We have a number of mortgage pool clients. Hedge funds in particular, I don't think we have as much involvement in on that end of it.
All right. If you have a 3.0 but you're not graduating for another year, is that something you would put on your resume? Do you suggest people to leave that off their resume?
That's a great question. I would always recommend putting your GPA on your resume, no matter what it is. For this reason, most of the time, if recruiters don't see a GPA on there, they're going to look at it as something that you're hiding, because nobody's going to hide a 4.0, right? So typically, if they're not putting it on there, there's probably something that maybe happened along the way. Better to address it head on, and say it was my freshman year was a little bit crazy, but I've been working to get that back, and can have a plan in mind to get it back up. I think that's a lot better approach than leaving it up to the recruiter's guessing game to figure out why the GPA is not on there. I'd say a 3.0, that's probably within some of the cutoff range for some of the firms, but it's one of those things where if you have those other parts of your resume that show that you're well-rounded, you're also working hard towards understanding the material, you're going to have a chance to talk to some firms.
I think that's great advice, and you know what? Because it happens. Probably happens to more of us than we like to admit. That you start off weak and then you catch up and you grow a lot between your freshman and senior year. So it's okay to be open about that. I think firms are actually willing to work with you if you're showing improvement.
Absolutely.
How can students who are in your areas or interested in moving to your locations, how can they learn more about the firm, and how can they learn more about careers with Armanino, Kevin?
We have actually a careers site online, so that's always a good resource, and that's where we post all of our current openings. So that's kind of probably the obvious one. you can also follow what Armanino is doing just as a firm. We tend to do pretty well on posting updates on our LinkedIn company page as well as on Twitter. Those are a little bit more about the firm and firm happenings than particularly on careers. But I would say, you know, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I did put, and I'll go ahead and advance the slide now. You can see there's my email address, and you know, I know I'm inviting a bigger inbox flood to my inbox, but I'll be happy to get those. And you know, I think those are some of the best ways, especially virtually. You know, start on LinkedIn, and then go from there.
All right, this is going to be the last question. This is one I've actually wanted to know too. What GPA do you care more about? What the undergraduate or graduate GPA?
For us, well, I mean, the graduate's going to be very specific to accounting, I would assume. So that's kind of an obvious one. Say you're not pursuing a graduate degree. Of course, the things that we're going to be looking at most closely are going to be the ones that are relevant to the work that you're going to be doing. So your accounting GPA, you know, finance doesn't really, it's really around your accounting courses. Of course, if you're getting a master's in accounting, we're going to look at that more closely because it's obviously going to be the most recent and the most relevant.
Makes sense. I always wondered that.
Yeah.
Well, so a couple of last things. These have been great questions. There's a few more questions, and Kevin, if you have a minute, I'll send them over to you. We can end the phone call, but for those of you who asked a question that wasn't answered, Kevin and I will answer them through the webinar, just through your control panel, even though we'll miss the call. Kevin, do you have an extra 5 minutes in this to answer those?
Sure thing, no problem.
Okay, just a couple of them were just so specific to a couple situations I didn't want to ask over the line.
Okay.
But you know, this has been just an awesome presentation, and I hope that the students and the recent grads on the call agree that there's a lot to think about, maybe that you weren't even aware of when it comes to career opportunities in the mid-market. And I'm telling you, every city that you go to in the country, there are great accounting firms who have real opportunities. You know, many of them are on CollegeFrog. You can learn more about, and I encourage you to learn more about Armanino, especially if you have an interest in working on the West Coast. One quick housekeeping item: tomorrow's webinar at the same time is going to be a lot of advice around the resume and job search, some of the stuff we talked about here at the end of the day. But it'll be taught by a recruiter who's with a top 20 firm, which is technically a mid-market firm, but she was also at a Big Four firm for many years beforehand. Her name is Yvonne Harris, and she's the CollegeFrog career coach. So you do not want to miss out on that, especially as we're going into recruiting season. Kevin, I'll let you have the last word, and then I'll wrap it up. But just want to say thanks. Any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
No, thanks for calling in. It's been fun talking to everybody, and I just really want to wish you guys the best of luck. I know it's almost a part-time job just going through this recruiting, and but I would say the more effort you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. And so while it's a little bit of an added effort, go for it, and you'll find great things come out of it. Good luck.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Thanks again for participating. Bye now.